Hello. Can you all hear me? No? Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started. I hope that all that chatter that was just going on means you're excited to be here as we are. So, no? Oh, come on now. All right, well, we're going to go ahead and get started. Thank you. Welcome. I appreciate everybody's attendance tonight. We are very excited to be here to finally be able to present this formal master long-range plan. I know that there has been a lot of questions out there. Oh, okay. Thank you. We got the music turned off. I knew there was something going on in the background. But yes, again, welcome and thank you all for being here. There has been a lot of work that has gone in to this plan over the last 18 months. And actually, to be honest with you, it's been more like 6-7 years. I know there's a lot of questions out there. We've sent out and tried to keep ahead of it with the FAQs. I'm confident they probably did not answer everything. I'm hoping by the time we get done with this presentation, you will be able to grasp and have a better understanding of the whys and how we got to where we are today and how we plan to implement it. For the agenda tonight, the plan we have is actually a true long-range plan. It's been put together for the entire entity of what we see we could do for the next 15 to 20 years. Tonight, though, for the agenda, I just want to try to be very clear that we're going to focus only on what we propose for the next 5 years. And reason being is that we just, for the flow of the meeting, in addition to just trying not to confuse what phase we're talking about. And so we're just going to focus on what we want to do over the next 5 years. Just a quick bit of history. Over the 6 to 7 years between the various boards, long-range planning committees, there's been a number of subcommittees. We've been trying to tackle what is the next phase. What are the next enhancements that we want to do to the club? And to be honest with you, 18 months ago, we were looking at it and we just concluded that some of the phases, some of the plans that previous boards had put together just really were not meeting what the needs of the membership wanted or the needs of our mission, vision of the club. So, we decided at that point in time to hire Steve Powers, who will be presenting here shortly. He decided to present, or he's coming on board and really helped us take we've done a couple of member surveys. We've done a full asset review of all the facilities within the club. And he helped us take a step back, look at some of the previous plans that were put into place or looking to put into place, and take more of a holistic view of the entire campus. And so that's really how we got to where we are today. And a lot of that, where's the clicker? Yeah. Do you want to click to well, here's just the agenda for the evening. And then the next slide, was part of it. This came directly from that. We've done 2 member surveys, the last one being in 2020, and finding that the major focus and what you all as members wanted was focus on dining, golf, and then you can see from there. So, okay. So how important is each of the following amenities to your experience at the club? From the membership survey, the number one, really they're very close. It was both dining and golf. Social activities next, pool, tennis, fitness, and then pickleball. Although I do have to say pickleball, if we probably surveyed today, I have a feeling that might go up quite a bit. So we have factored in pickleball into the long range plan. And to be honest, hopefully we can figure out how to do that sooner than later. But anyways, so, as we all know, we moved here, or the club established in 1915. We moved out here to this campus in 1990. In all reality, we have not done, if you want to go, we have a next slide on the historical kind of overview. If you see this, we really haven't done any major renovations to the course or the clubhouse since 2004, 2005-ish. So that's really 20, close to 20 years ago. We feel, as you get through this presentation, it is time for us to catch up. So, yeah, I know we have done things in the Mountain View Lounge, in the ballroom. I hear some of that in the background. But from some major, what we're talking about, major course renovations, major clubhouse renovations, particularly around our kitchens, is really, hopefully you'll see the focus tonight. I do just have a few housekeeping items. And I know that I really want to preface that tonight is an informational meeting. If you got my letter a couple of, early August, we had a date for a vote. We've heard a lot of chatter, a lot of feedback. We have postponed the vote. We are not scheduled for a vote. We are here tonight to present information. I mean, I'm sure many of you have been involved in between your works, other things. As you're going through processes like this, you get in the weeds, and we are in the weeds. We as a board, we as our subcommittees, the long range planning committees, we do feel the proposal that we have is the best course of action. You all may not feel that way, and that's totally okay. We have no hidden agendas. We are a members club. You all have, as equity members, the right to vote. You have a right to your opinion. And so tonight, I just really ask that as we get through, first off, I'm going to ask that we hold all questions to the end. Reason being is just so we can get through the presentation and allow for plenty of time for the questions, and ask them. We want your feedback. If we need to pivot, we are not taking a vote tonight. We are here to explain to you what we propose, what we feel is a great master plan. And it's totally okay if y'all don't agree with us and we need to change direction. Just please be respectful. I would like to keep some decorum to this meeting. As you ask your questions, please come up to the microphones. We are recording this. This is live. And so we do ask that you speak into the microphones so the people that are on the Zoom can hear the questions. And with that, I am going to open it up to the presentation and have Steve Powers present.
Thank you, Stacy. Can everyone hear me? Just want to make sure my mic is going out. Again, my name is Steve Power Architects. This is Kelly Harris. You may know Kelly. He's done some renovations out here in the past. He's been working for quite some time on the club. We were brought in about a year and a half ago to help with an overview of the entire facilities, not the golf course, just the campus other than the golf course. And as Stacy mentioned, the work that's done to the club has happened over the years since 2004. But what she was mentioning in 2004, as you recall, that's when the carts came out from under the building, the pro shop came out from under the building, the men's grill actually had a larger grill area, and it was a total transformation of the lower level. That's the last time anything major has happened. The ballrooms upstairs really hasn't transformed, other than the Mountain View Lounge, which has been added on to a couple of times, and very successfully, I might add. So these additions to your club have been successful. And what we're proposing is another reiteration of these additions to the club and transformations of the club for the next 25 years. That's what a master plan is all about. And you do have to remember, this is a master plan. This is preliminary. So we're not here to say we're driving this down your throat. We were hired by the board, by the club, to help you see what's a possibility in the future. So the things we're presenting tonight, particularly in the overall site, are possibilities for your club. None of them are set in stone. There's been, no agenda specifying when it would happen, but we just wanted to present the possibilities. So with that, I wanted to go into just the areas that we're going to be touching on from an overall site standpoint. We'll talk about the building after we look at the site. This is your existing site plan. So you've got the pool, tennis building up in the upper level where you just did that wonderful pavilion, which I know everyone enjoys. You've got the main clubhouse, the pro shop, and of course, the golf course with the driving range, 18, number 1 over here. So this is your existing campus. That's what you have now. And what we'd like to talk about is things in the clubhouse that will change, the tennis center, courts, meaning tennis or pickleball, fitness facility, and pool. We wanted to touch on those areas. Now, clubhouse we'll talk about in depth in just a second, but tennis center, everyone knows the tennis center needs some renovation work. It needs better amenities. The tennis people need better place to call their home. So that is one of the priorities in the master plan. Nothing specific about what needs to be done, but the tennis center is a part of the master plan issues that need to be addressed. Courts. This would be pickleball courts. And I'll go to the next slide where we're talking about what might be these improvements to the existing site plan. And number 1, the pool, we'll jump back to the pool, a kids area for kids, infants, and shade area. It needs a place. The pool, the kids pool is just not acceptable. And we need better shade for parents around that pool. And the pool deck needs replacing. Now the swimming pool itself is fine. And of course, you do have a new grill kitchen, you've got the new pavilion. So it's a great place to go, but there are improvements that need to happen at the pool. So that's one piece of this overall master plan we're talking about. The tennis center refurbishment, what I just talked about. It needs work, it needs some love. But what that is, we're not really proposing. We're just saying that is something that the club needs to focus on in the future. Number 3, the dedicated pickleball court. So we've got some space up here next to a couple of hard courts. It will be a perfect spot for 2 dedicated pickleball courts. So you don't necessarily have to take over your existing hard courts for pickleball. You can have 2 dedicated pickleball courts. Number 4, fitness facility. And I'm just going to combine that with youth center. 2 things the club does not have is a really nice fitness center where people feel comfortable coming either early in the morning, after work, working out, and making it a destination point. The one in the existing tennis center is just inadequate. It's not as nice a facility as it could be. There are no views. The restrooms are not up to par. So this is one of the things that we see that the club could use in the future. And what we're proposing is there's a dirt lot, basically at the end of the main parking lot over here, used for overflow parking, staff parking. I'm sure you've all seen cars parked up on the dirt. Well, that is an unused and untapped area of your campus. And a building could be situated there. And there are some setbacks we have to deal with being adjacent to residential property. But this building could incorporate a youth center, a dedicated youth center. It could even have an infant child caring area. It could have a full floor of fitness on the upper level that has views out to the golf course, which, anybody sitting on a cardio machine knows if you can be looking out at a golf course and have magnificent views, it makes it a whole lot better experience. So this location is a wonderful place for that. And it would allow to move the pro shop, which is fairly tight to this building and a little bit disruptive in the flow from the parking lot to the cart staging out to number 1T. So what we're proposing is if the pro shop were actually in this corner of a new facility, then you could have an ample cart staging, bag drop, pro shop within that. And below that, all your carts, bag storage. So it's really an efficient building for actually 3 different functions that the club could use enhancement on. Now, you may say, well, the pro shop's fine the way it is, and it's a fine pro shop. But downstairs, you've got the service area. It's not utilized to the best of its ability. So this would be a better, a alternate solution to that. So the next item is ladies' locker room and men's grill. We're not gonna go into detail, but within the overall master plan, we looked inside the building and we feel like there's a possibility to be able to move the ladies' locker room out of sort of the back side of the lower clubhouse out more on the daylight. So where the Kennesaw room, there can be ladies' lounge, locker room associated with the grill. And then the men can have an expanded grill out below the pavilion with a dedicated bar. So that is another thing that is not really a part of this particular plan that we'll be showing you in the clubhouse, but it is a possibility for a future amenity that the club really doesn't have and could improve and just make the membership have better quality spaces. So it's a membership enhancement. All this we're talking about is driven by membership enhancement. So the next slide, I wanted to sort of drill into the clubhouse itself. We talked, yes. Sure. So the overall master plan, the site master plan, including the ladies' lounge and the men's grill that I just spoke about, that's not included in what we have presented from a cost standpoint and a part of the phase 1, phase 2 projects. So what we're going to drill into now, and Kelly and I are going to talk about, is the phase 1 and the phase 2 projects. And it really takes on 4 different areas of the club. Number 1, the Mountain View Lounge. We're going to be talking about that. The Mountain View Lounge is located right here. This is just a bird's eye view of the clubhouse. The ballroom enhancement, which is over in this zone of the clubhouse where we are now. The 1915 grill, which is immediately below the ballroom. And then the turn, grill, and restrooms. And when I say turn grill, right now there's a turn, but it's not a grill. So you can get paninis and things like that, but you can't get full menu of things grilled like burgers and things of that nature. Unless it's coming from the kitchen, which would take a lot more time. So those 4 areas we're going to touch on real quickly. This is the existing Mountain View Lounge. So you can see the Mountain View Pavilion, the bar, the boardroom or president's room, and then you've got 4 tops sort of scattered around the bar. And then down to Plan South, you've got the Mountain View room, which is a big room. It's a little awkward for private dinners, private functions where there are not that many people in it. So what we're proposing to enhance the membership experience in the grill in the Mountain View Lounge is to provide an actual grill, a dedicated grill for the Mountain View Lounge where you can get a la carte food. It's not coming from the banquet kitchen. That's not coming from the grill downstairs. That is specifically for the Mountain View Lounge. And by having a grill, it lets the banquet kitchen be a banquet kitchen as it should be. So here's what we're proposing. Take the boardroom and create a grill, an open grill. So it becomes a view kitchen. So there's a lot of activity. You can see what's going on. The same type of thing you get in the lounge. The lounge is not a quiet dining experience. There's a lot of activity going on. So this would be perfect for providing the type of menu that you would expect at a lounge and have a lot of interaction between the members and what's happening in the kitchen. We're adding booths along here, and Kelly, you can jump in anytime, but you know, the booth seating, that's a new type of dining experience for the
Yeah,
lounge
kind of,
itself.
encourages that lounge atmosphere, gives a different type, as Steve mentioned, of seating. I mean, everyone loves the Mountain View Lounge. It's
Right.
an oversubscribed room. We just want to make more of it, which is what those banquettes or booths allow for in the niche.
And it's really driven again by the kitchen. The kitchen is driving the member experience because you're making the food better. And then along with that, we've got better dining experience. And by pushing into the Mountain View room, taking a third of the Mountain View room, what you end up with is a really nice size private dining room, card room. It could be a special event room, board room, the multi-purpose space, but really nice multi-purpose space that has a good scale to it. So you still get the amenity of the grill service, but it becomes more of a nice, intimate private dining room instead of a larger event space that the Mountain View room sort of has now. And then we'll talk about this later, but this blue area is actually a cover for the turn downstairs. So as this says, we're removing a wall. That's an existing wall right there, has bifold doors in it. We're taking that out and then opening it up to the booth area. So the booths come right off the main room.
To me, that's one of the things that's not, as members, you may not understand where your food comes from or even care where it comes from, but by adding a dedicated grill kitchen in the Mountain View Lounge, it improves efficiency, so you get your food faster. You will have more options. I mean, some of the food that you order in the Mountain View Lounge comes from downstairs grill, if you know that or not. So this allows it all to be centralized. It gives the banquet kitchen back to the banquet function. And it
Quicker,
could
more
look-
efficient service.
And it could look like this, what you see on the screen. So
Yeah,
on the-
this is an example of a view kitchen. You know, you may think, oh, you're looking into a kitchen, but if you have nice millwork, the servers would be working directly onto this millwork along a members corridor. This is actually a members corridor that goes to the grill. It's a major entrance to the grill of this club, and this is up in Charlottesville, Virginia. But you can see how quite beautiful it is looking back into the kitchen, and to walk past there and see that activity and you're going to the grill. I think it would be a nice experience and would get you the type of food that you need and the ambiance that you really would want to have in that space. These are just some basic three-dimensional views of certain aspects of the room. We're kind of focusing on the booth. So the booths will be tucked into a little niche, you know, have their own feel to it. You can see it from a couple of different angles. This is the view kitchen. So it's along the corridor, but there's still millwork, a nice countertop, and nice finishes along that members corridor.
And because the kitchen is exposed, it does have its own nicer, more upscale finishes in the
Right,
visual.
you know, the subway tile on all the walls, so it really has that really cool. I mean, everybody's been to the Houston's or other kitchens where there's a big open air kitchen behind you. There's no problem walking by because you sort of see the activity. So this is just a small scale version of that. Yeah. So next I wanted to come around the building this way into the ballroom. So the ballroom, as it stands now, you can see we are in this space right here. So you got a long sort of linear ballroom. And then in this area, it's basically a covered porch. It was an open air porch at one time. It's a covered porch now. So the usability of the ballroom is basically where we are. That's additional space out there, and it can be used for certain activities supporting the ballroom, but this is really the ballroom. And you can only get to it from these two doors. So you can get to these two. If this wall is up, you have to go all the way around to get to the Marietta room. So what we're proposing to do is transform the ballrooms themselves by adding essentially half another ballroom from that door wall right there out. So the rooms, you'll still have 3 rooms, but they will be situated in a way that when it's all opened up, you won't have this type of organization. You'll have a larger type of organization where you could have an event like this, but everyone would be out in front as opposed to along the sides.
And
Still-
uninterrupted by this structural wall like you have behind you.
Right.
It's less awkward space. For those of you in the back, it's harder for you to see and hear than it is for those in the original part of the ballroom.
Again, it just opens it up. It creates a more efficient space. You can get more events here because you have more capacity. But one of the main features of this new ballroom arrangement is creating a wall essentially right about here. So the ballroom starts at this point. What you end up with is a corridor that connects from the front all the way around and back to the grill. So sort of a loop circulation space around the kitchen core that would allow for, if you had an event in this room, you've got a dedicated door that comes in, a dedicated door for each ballroom. You don't have that now off of a main entrance from the club. And another really nice thing about this is when you're in the ballroom, in this space right here, you're right on the window wall. You're looking at the golf course. There's not a door and then another window and then the golf course. You really get a sense of being out looking at the views
Daylight.
and a lot of daylight that comes in. So it transforms the 3 different size rooms here to 3 organized ballrooms that work more efficiently and will actually allow for better events for members to enjoy. And there is an outdoor veranda. We still have something similar to that, where it's an outdoor space off of the ballroom themselves, so you can go out to the open air. So this is the Mountain View room we just talked about, and it would be off of the corridor that circled all the way around the building. Now, the Marietta room, because we're proposing to reconfigure this space, it would actually get smaller by the width of that door right there. So the Marietta room would then become more of a private dining room, private event room, not a ballroom size, but a smaller area that could be used for, you know, a party or cards. You could set up 6, 8 card rooms in there, card tables in there. So that would become again, a multi-purpose special use room that doesn't interfere with any ballroom event you might be having. And you can access any of these rooms from the corridor that loops around the kitchen. So again, we're just increasing efficiency and creating better spaces by increasing the ballroom the way we're showing here. Now,
All of this too, I want to just point out, we'll get to this when we go downstairs, but a lot of this was informed by the need downstairs to enlarge the kitchen for the grill.
right, that is true.
I'm
And
jumping ahead a little bit, but it is important to explain how that.
the downstairs improvement allowed for the upstairs improvement, if that makes sense. I think when I talk about the downstairs, it'll make more sense. But if we do the downstairs improvements, you can't change the upstairs after that. You're sort of locked into it. So let's talk about the downstairs, and I'll kind of go back up to the upstairs so you can see what we're talking about. So this is the view you've all seen. Kelly, you can jump in and talk about that, but you know, it's on the view. The windows have the golf course view. And it's just a nice open space. So downstairs, this is your existing lower level grill. Got the family area, the adult, the bar, and that's your kitchen. That's it. Hasn't been changed since 2004. So the kitchen is driving what's happening downstairs. In order for the members to have better food, better experiences, the kitchen is what is driving this design. So what we're proposing, starting with the kitchen, is additions to it. That is the existing kitchen. So we're proposing kitchen expansion back in the cook line, additional storage and prep space, pizza oven action window, a better centrally located buffet, better service areas. All those for a better member experience. Because right now they're just jammed in and they're not being able to get the food out as quickly and the quality I think that you all are expecting. So this drives moving everything downward. And that line right there is the line of where your dining experience was. Well, we're proposing to add this piece, which pushes your dining down farther toward the pro shop. But what we've done is we've tried to organize it in a family and adult dining manner with a centrally located U-shaped bar. So you got a great bar experience, you got a great buffet experience, both centrally located between adult and family dining. And each of these opens out onto a central covered dining terrace, as well as open dining terraces around it. So you've got better food, better service, better ambiance, better organization, better flow. It's just a better experience that will meet your needs, I'm sure, and enhance the quality and experience you have out there.
And none of that can happen unless we expand the grill kitchen.
Just the blue area right here, that is the area below the ballroom addition. So that allows you, by removing the building from that wall out and expanding, that allows you to have this nice open space downstairs in the grill, as well as the larger open space for the ballrooms above. Without taking this piece off and just expanding the grill out the way you've done it time and time again, we would actually end up with, if you expanded the window wall out one more layer to get more seating and to expand your kitchen, you would end up with 12 columns throughout the dining space. It's littered with columns down there because it's been added onto so many times with additional covered dining. So, and then enclosed, covered dining enclosed. So there hasn't been a step back. Let's look at 25 years down the road. What needs to be done to make this right and be correct for the next 25, 30, 40 years? So that's why this piece is orderly, and the kitchen can be expanded and, you know, function the way it should.
And
A
Steve,
couple-
while we're looking at this, in the grill specifically, the seating layout and counts was intentional. There's plenty of traffic for service and for members to walk in and out of the indoor and outdoor covered spaces. It was intentional that we did not add a bunch of seats. That wasn't the goal here. There are 30 additional seats in the grill, but the real goal was an improved member experience. I also wanted to point out that we gained 2 private dining room opportunities on this level.
Right.
There's a wine room
Right
off
here.
the corridor, which you've seen plenty of wine rooms, but this one would be a beautiful one appointed with upscale wine cabinets. And then in the family dining room, there's another opportunity for 6 to 8 to dine privately for a birthday party or a special event.
So again, not only do you have a better ambiance, but you have better features associated with your dining experience. And Kelly just talked about the private dining rooms, but the expanded buffet with the action window, a pizza oven, you know, everybody loves that. And just a better arrangement of bars and seating area.
And the bar connects, as you saw in the renderings, connects to the outdoors.
Right,
That's the
there's a-
number one request that we hear in the private club world, is a connection for indoor dining to outdoor dining.
So you got bar stools outside as well.
And what better way to do it than a bar that looks right at the golf course, has a window out to it, and from the outdoor covered area, you can walk up and get a drink directly from the bar.
So just to be clear, the blue area is new construction. The yellow area is renovated space in existing structure. So you can see the extent of the project in the yellow and how much we're going into the existing building and what we're renovating and what we're not touching in this phase. So the next thing I wanted to talk about was the turn. And, oh, well, I'm sorry, we have some shots, everyone. Okay. So you've seen these, there's the outdoor bar, wonderful, the views out from the dining pavilion or dining porch. So the next area I want to just touch on is the turn. The turn is not a turn grill kitchen. So, and there's no ladies' bathrooms associated with it. And the Kennesaw room is small multi-purpose room. So for this piece of the renovation, what we're including is an expanded turn with a hood and a grill capability, a cover over the an open a window into the kitchen, a dedicated men's and women's restrooms. So women and men can have a restroom at the turn, and then an expanded Kennesaw room that would serve as a perfect ladies' card room on the view on the window. So on that, you want to come up and I think the next slide is.
Thank you, Steve.
that.
Appreciate it.
Okay, I think that works. Thank you, Steve. Really appreciate your comments. So I'm David Bottoms. I am currently co-chairing the House Committee along with Alan Bradford. So I'm just going to make a couple of very brief remarks before turning it over to Brian for comments regarding golf and kind of the financing angle of things. With respect to all of this, I think Stacy did a really good job kind of teeing this up. You know, the board is trying to really just continue its effort to be good stewards of your club. And as a result of that, we're really driven by the vision of the club, which isn't something that this board came up with. It was come up with years ago, which is that we will be a club community of choice by delivering exceptional member experiences built on a sustained commitment to outstanding facilities, exceptional service, and genuine hospitality. And so I just want to say that vision, I think, is a pretty strong vision. So I think as we as members consider this project, it's important for us to kind of zoom out a little bit and think about the vision of the club and the direction that really requires that we at least be looking to pursue as we look to the next 5 years, and then obviously beyond that into the future. So first of all, I just want to give a little bit of well-deserved credit to our staff. I think we can all agree that the staff of Merida Country Club are absolutely incredible. And so when we look at that vision, there were kind of 3 core elements there at the end of it. There's outstanding facilities, exceptional service, and genuine hospitality. Frankly, I think we're kind of knocking the cover off the ball in those last 2. The exceptional service and genuine hospitality, I think we're doing a really good job. And that's Daniel, Kyle, really the entire team. They have really, over the course in previous administrations as well, if we're being honest, I think that they have kind of been delivering service from a posture of we'll do more with less. And I think that's really admirable. But I think when it comes to outstanding facilities, it's really incumbent upon us as members to kind of deliver on that. There's nothing that the staff can really do unless we're willing to kind of identify needs and invest in them. So I think obviously the word outstanding is somewhat subjective, and we could get into a variety of, we'll probably have some questions here about, do we need this? Do we need that? And at the end of the day, I think it's just important for us to consider, what do we consider outstanding? Are the current facilities outstanding? If they are, then we're delivering on our vision. But if they're not, then we're not. And so either the vision in that case would need to change, or we as members would need to step up to the plate. So I just position that kind of as a place to maybe continue to kind of contemplate this. With respect to the kitchens, I think Kelly and Steve said it well. The existing kitchens, built in 2004 really haven't been touched much since then. Even the entire downstairs grill area, frankly, other than some window dressing, really hasn't been touched in almost 20 years. This will provide a 79% increase in square footage space downstairs with respect to the kitchen. You don't have to be an expert on operational efficiency to realize that a 79% increase in space is going to provide some significant efficiency gains and service delivery gains. When we look at the survey that Stacy referenced, specific high-level comments were made about a desire for expanded menu options and speed to service. This will provide on that. Anybody want to guess how big the MVL kitchen is right now? 80 square feet. So for all of us who really enjoy the MVL, and Steve's right, Kelly's right. I mean, that's a really well-utilized area of our club. That kitchen's 80 square feet. This is going to provide 219% increase in square footage space to the MVL kitchen. That's going to provide more opportunities for, again, that menu enhancement, kind of that service delivery. So with that, I just want to say, as we consider this, at the end of the day, as Stacy said, we're not here to, try to sell anything, but a lot of work has gone into this. And whether it's this plan or something a little different, I think in particular, at least from my perspective, currently we as a membership could do a little better in the outstanding facilities category. So now I'll turn it over to Brian to kind of touch on some of the other items. Thank you.
All right, good evening. Brian Moore, pleased to serve on the board. I also chair the grounds committee and serve on the finance committee. And I guess relevant to this project, chair the grounds golf part of the project, as well as the finance subcommittee. So this is something that I'm very passionate about when we talk about the golf course enhancements. This is, I see, golf course is the most important asset that we have. And similarly, what can we do to improve the experience that members have on the golf course? So that's really what was behind what we're putting in front of everybody today. Looking at the rich history here of the golf course, in the club in general, you can see we planted the flag in 1990 in Kennesaw when we moved here. And since then, the last 33 years have a rich history of continuous improvement, investments in the golf course to, make it better and better, throughout the last 33 years. And if you would walk around, call it 14, 15, these are the holes, 14, 15, 16, 17, number 3, the dredging project that we did in front of that hole. 33 years ago, it didn't look anything like that. So wanting to keep that tradition, keep moving forward. And if you look at and I know for those that are home, you can't see the pointer. So I'll try to just be descriptive as I'm working through this where we're at. But, overlook in the middle of this, the construction began on that in 2005. And concurrently in 2005 and 2006, we renovated Mountain View and Lakeview golf course as well, renovated those holes. So I think that's an interesting data point that we have as well of how often we should be thinking about redoing the golf course, the greens. That was 16 years is when we put in those A1 bent greens, which at the time were, the best product out there. So those advancements were made as well. So I think that, on this backdrop, what we really want to talk about is how this sets us up for the next 33 years on the golf course. This isn't just a plan, me standing up here telling you what I want for the golf course. Although, serving as the grounds chair and the 700 golf members, if you will, I think I get a lot of feedback from the golf members and what they want. So their voices and your voices are all in here. In addition to that, Mark Hayes, who unfortunately can't be here tonight for a family commitment. He's my right-hand man on this. His fingerprints are all over it. This is what he wants, and this is what he thinks is best as well. He'll forget more about golf course agronomy than I'll ever know. So I lean heavily on him for
what's best for membership. And then finally, we're talking with many different consultants as well that do this, all day long, every day. I would say the foremost person that we're talking with is a Dr. Richard Hurley. That actually, probably about a year ago, I started following him on Twitter, successfully slid into his DMs on Twitter. After 3 months, he responded to me. And so he's been working with Mark and I on understanding this part of the golf course. And importantly, this part of the world where we are is the transition area, where our golf course has to deal with extreme cold and extreme heat. And this is an area he's really well versed in. And he's not just, a sales guy that's helping us because he wants to sell us his product or a product. He's actually on for 33 years on the agronomy kit committee at Augusta National Golf Club. And after 30 years, they gave him lifetime badges. And he was instrumental in introducing 2 of the types of turf that we're looking at for our greens. Getting those, you might recall at Augusta National in the past year, they redid the par 3 course. Those greens, they have implemented the super bent grass that are 2 of the ones we're looking at, that they're going to study those for 2 years and decide which one moves to the big boy course. So long story short, there's a lot of voices that have gone into putting this plan together. But more importantly, why now? Why are we talking about this right now? And there's 2 really important considerations. One are the conditions of our golf course, as well as advancements that have been made that I started to allude to. So if you look at the condition of our course, I think what's interesting is we really want to have similarly a great member experience on the course where we have good conditions as long as possible throughout the year. And that's something we really struggle with right now. If you go out there now, our fairways look great right now, and they should. That's when they look really good, is in the summertime. If you think back to the spring and fall and winter the last couple of years, because of the age of our turf, our fairways have really struggled. Similarly, the bent grass greens that we have, A1 bent, they are not only older, but they struggle. Their downfall is in July and August. You have to put a lot of water on them for the surface to be able to stay alive and make sure that they don't die. So that results in really bad, you go out here at 6 o'clock, today, July, August, bumpy surfaces. So what we want to try to do by this project is get the best putting surfaces and conditions on the golf course for us to play into the holes is consistently throughout the year. I'll just kind of draw attention to this middle area here, the USGA useful lives. You'll notice on the fairways, they recommend 25 to 30 years. We're at 33 years. Similarly, greens, 15 to 20 years. We're at 18 years. Corrugated pipe, think drainage. This is 25 years. We're at 33 years from when we opened. And then finally, irrigation, 30-year useful life, and we're at 18 years. So that's why purposefully you won't see material dollars incorporated into this project for irrigation, because Mark and the team, feel that it is in really good shape and will continue to be for the next 10, 20 years. In addition to kind of the state of the union of our course, you also have to take into consideration advancements that have happened in, the agronomy and turf industry over the last 10, 15 years. And I would just kind of liken it to all the advancements that have happened in technology. And when we put these greens in 2006, shortly thereafter, the iPhone was launched, iPhone 1. Now we're up to the iPhone 14. I'm not cool. I don't have the iPhone 14, but I have the iPhone 12. My 12-year-old daughter would tell you that I'm the biggest loser in the world because I don't have the latest iPhone. But I think that similarly to the advancements in all the technology we deal with on a daily basis, similar advancements have happened in the turf that will make our playing conditions a lot more consistent throughout the year. Project scope, 3 areas, practice area. This includes relocating the green that we have, the putting green, moving it over and making it larger. And we'll go into some more schematics of that later, but think 53% increase in size of the putting green. Currently, we're a shade over 6,000 square feet. That'll be increasing to over 10,000 square feet. So first and foremost will be the putting green being relocated and larger. Chipping green with multiple bunkers around it, where you'll be able to work on your short game from 0 to 40 yards on a chipping green. And then throughout the course, there'll be throughout the range, there'll be additional targets for us to aim at from 125 yards with greens out to 300 yards. Greens, certainly new grass. They'll be rebuilt with new grass surfaces, new drainage and submaterials underneath those. And where needed, maybe some potentially some minimal recontouring in certain areas. And then finally, the third aspect of this, fairways. New grass, we're continuing to research between zoysia and new Bermuda strands. In addition to that, drainage. This is an area that we can't put the best type turf on top of if we don't have a really good subsurface that's drained. So in addition to improving the turf quality, one of the big goals and benefits of putting in all this new drainage is less cart path only days as well. And thinking back to when the course was built 33 years ago, this really was an area that was cut back on at the end as we got the project across the finish line, was drainage. And that's something that Mark has been spending a lot of time on over the last 5 years, doing some ad hoc repair work in the worst areas on the golf course for drainage, but really having a thoughtful, purposeful throughout the course plan for drainage has been incorporated in this. And then as it relates to that, recontouring any areas or problem areas that we want to recontour to help with drainage as well. So what does that equate to from a timeline and roadmap? There's really 3 areas of this, just on that last slide. 2 of them mirror each other with the fairways and greens. Those project timelines mirroring each other, but I'm going to start with hitting on the short game area at the top of the slide. In the final kind of design phases of that, but ultimately starting that in Q2 of 2024, an 8-week project that, we kind of purposely staged this where we'll have the practice area done not only for use throughout 2024, but also as we enter into 2025, when we'll be shutting down parts of the golf course to redo the fairways and greens. So as we transition to that area, really one of the big points to make here is we have a deadline to order sod for the golf course for the 32 acres of December of this year. So that's why when I get a lot of people ask me, well, why are we doing that in 2025? Why aren't we doing this in 2024? And quite frankly, we can't. It's not an option for us from a turf perspective. So that's why we're really looking at the timing of why now to think about this, so that we can place that order so that in 2025, we can begin work. What 2025 would look like is this is where we would begin renovating the golf course, where we would do 18 holes, Mountain View and Lakeview. In the month of April and leading up to that in May, we would still have the various member organization events, members, member guests, where we would be shutting down the golf course. Mid-May, it would be shut down, those 18 holes through the end of October, reopening at that point in time in November. Now, to be fully transparent, we would not be back on the golf course with our carts at that time. It would be cart path only for a period of time as growing continues to happen in that area. Similarly, when you go out to 2026, this would be where we would focus on the 9 holes at Overlook. Now, we would have the benefit because it is a smaller project. We wouldn't have to start as early. So that would start in June and finish in October. Now, I would just say another consideration to keep in mind is this has to be done during the warm growing part of the world or part of the season. So that's why, we're not doing this in November, December, January, February, because it unfortunately has to be done when the grass can grow. I think one area that other than turf type, where we spent the most amount of time was the cadence of how we would do this. And we looked at it in three considerations, I would say. One is, let's bite the bullet and do all 27 holes at once. Close the golf course, 6 months, get that done. But ultimately, when you think about how that bumps up against the demographics of our club, how active it is, how much use there is, kind of decided that probably wouldn't be best for us. Although on paper, it would be the quickest way to get it done, it probably would cause, the most heartache and pain. So we didn't go with that option. And then it really narrowed it down to, do we do 18 holes and 9 holes over a 2-year period? Or do we do 9 holes, 9 holes, 9 holes over a 3-year period? And this is an area where we really wanted to leverage other courses around us that have done a similar project. And, one of the subcommittee members, Jason Bone, he lived through in 2017 to 2019 at TPC Sugarloaf on the other side of town. They did the exact same projects, 27 holes, where over those 3 years, they went 9 holes, 9 holes, 9 holes. And he was adamant that by the end of that project, or even halfway through it, everybody, or 95% of the people that voted to do it that way, were 100% against that and would have then done it the other way for, a host of reasons that we'll go through. So we kind of wanted to learn from other sins of the past and learnings that they had, so we didn't have to reinvent the wheel and learn from their mistakes. So this slide here really takes a look at the other considerable timeline that we looked at, which was if we went with 9 holes, 9 holes, 9 holes over 3 years. The one benefit here, pro, is pretty obvious, is that you would at any point in time not have, you would always have 18 holes available to you at the end of the day. So that would be important for the 6-month period in 2025, where the 18 holes of Mountain View and Lakeview would be closed, and you would have Overlook open and, the practice area to use. So that is the obvious pro of that scenario. Going over to the con side, as I mentioned before, kind of project atrophy, and that it runs for 3 years and would go from 2025 to 2027. Another material consideration is inconsistency and the inconsistent greens conditions across all 3 9 holes. As there is a grow-in period for when these greens are completed, you would, say you're playing in a Friday member guest, 27 holes, you'd have to keep track of, okay, is this the original 9 holes? Was it the one we did 2 years ago or the one we did 1 year ago? And where that's really important is when you're hitting in your approach shots, the conditions of the greens for the newly renovated ones would be harder than others. So it becomes more of a mental gymnastics and an inconsistency of the 9 holes for all 27 on the course. Third is the disruption of the golf course. It really wouldn't be as simple as us saying, all right, we're going to do Mountain View, then Lakeview, then Overlook in 3 years. That just wouldn't work from, a project planning perspective, where it would be, we'd have hybrid 9 holes that would be open, like as you see there, 1, 2, 3, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. We've utilized this in the past. It's not great, but it's even worse when you're sprinkling in doing fairways as well, where on holes next to you, you're going to have major equipment, major crews, and major dust and stirrup all over the course. So that's a, kind of a material consideration. And then finally, the higher costs. The biggest cost of this project for these 2 pieces is actually labor. Turf is large, but labor is the biggest cost of this. And when you're doing it over a 50% longer time period, you're not really utilizing and efficiently gaining that utilization of staff. So there's about a 8 to 10% labor utilization that you lose as well. short game area. I guess I would start by just saying, I'm not a practicer, if you will. My member and that partners will attribute that, if I'm not there 2 minutes before our tea time, don't worry about it, we'll be fine. But this is something that when you look back to the survey that was done in 2020, was one of the primary focus areas for improvement and investment on was our short game area. So that's really why we're up here today going through the short game area. And 3 of the large tenants that I had mentioned earlier is one, looking at the left-hand side, is relocating the putting green really from where it is today to up here in that 6,000 to 10,000 square foot increase in space. You'll notice here the short game green, which I guess this sketch is even a little bit more outdated. There's, additional bunkers that would be around there. But you can see the fairway here to work on chipping for that 0 to kind of 35, 40-yard shots. And then additionally, on the range itself, enhanced pitching green, where there would be 6 targets set up for people to work on their short game as well, with 6 pinnable locations. Kind of zooming out a little bit more of a view of the short game area and driving range enhancements. This shows as well the pitching green that we just talked about. But then in addition to that, 5 greens with bunkers added to the driving range, that this really allows us to set up for shots that you're going to be seeing while you're out there and hitting into greens, with bunkers around them and that as well. So that's part of the plan for the driving range that's incorporated into this. Other than 18 holes, 9 holes at a time, this is where we've spent most of our time and our research over the last 6 months plus, is on the grass selection that we have. And I'll be the first to tell you, as I stand here today, we're not making a recommendation purposefully of what grass we were going to be using on the greens. We have done a lot of research, but there's a lot more to do. And until we have like a full data set and considerations, we just don't feel ready to make a recommendation. That includes, we have more site visits to do. What's great about this is that there's a lot of courses around us that are doing similar projects and putting in these super bent grasses that are the next generation of turf. So visiting them and playing them in their historically the worst time to play bent, July, August, in September, is playing those courses, doing more site visits. We've been to Atlanta Country Club a couple of times. They're doing an $18 million golf course renovation project. So really learning from, some of their shortfalls as well. But ultimately, we identified 6 considerations that are important from a grass perspective for greens, where we just racked and stacked and said, here's currently where A1 stands, what we currently have, as well as the super bents and some others that you'll see here in the middle that, are the new ones that are out there. And then in addition to that, TifEagle Bermuda, where these, one thing I'll note as it relates to Bermuda is some of the shade tolerance and cold tolerance issues that they have, which is real. Something that we're spending additional time on is for shade. We have a lot of trees on our golf course. We can control those. A lot of our neighbors have trees on their property too that we can't control. I guess the best example of that would be number 15. We would want to make sure, if we were to go with Bermuda greens, that we could remove trees that aren't on our property, or else there'd be periods of time throughout the year where we'd have 17 holes on that side of that side of the course, because that shade that gets would be too much for that. So that is why, we have more work to do before, we have a full set of facts to make a educated proposal on which turf. So that rounds up, on the golf course side, what we really want to do to give us a world-class facility and invest in even more, what I consider the most important asset to the club. But wanted to transition now to the financial picture. And I think it's important to start with where we stand today, kind of the state of the union of the club financially as we embark on this project. Is from a balance sheet is on the left-hand side. Just want to highlight our cash position where we stand at today. $5.6 million of cash on the balance sheet. We also have down below, you'll note $7.5 million of debt. This is down from 9.5 million a couple of years ago. So ultimately, if you add those two together and think about it from a net debt perspective, excuse me, we're sitting at $2 million of net debt today. On the right-hand side, the income statement, again, this is through July, I should add. It's the latest and greatest that we have. So far, we've done over $10 million of revenue year to date, with that being $500,000 favorable versus the operational budget that we set up. And I would say that the largest driver of that favorability is the Pro Shop and the great job that Troy and his team has done there. That's driven revenue favorability. And then, you know, I think across the whole Daniel's team in controlling costs and making sure that our expenses have aligned with the budget that we set forward has ultimately allowed us to come in $93,000 favorable to budget through July. So just wanted to touch on where we're at through July is a starting point. And then also just a refresher to everybody of how we think about funding for the club. There's really three key areas of funding. Operational income, which is think member dues, expenses, all of that, the day-to-day stuff of the club. Next is the obligatory capital. And I would kind of term this or think about that as the under 10 years projects, useful lives that we have. You know, this year alone, I'd say on the kitchen side, right? New ovens, new dishwashers, new equipment and appliances there, tennis furniture that we put in, as well as new tractors and cart paths on the golf course. Those kind of fall into that obligatory capital bucket. And then finally, aspirational capital, which is really what we're talking about today for the most part. Down here on the bottom is 15 to 30 year useful life enhancements to the club that are really funded through initiation fees and, you know, capital charges as well. So I thought it'd be good just to highlight, you know, that as a grounding as we kind of talk about now the project costs. I think about this as in kind of the deal world, the sources and uses slide of where's the money coming from and where's it going to. So we've talked about the two major parts of this project being the clubhouse as well as the golf course. On the clubhouse, $17 million is the total cost of that, broken out. You can see there between the two phases of the project, as well as the contractors we've been working with and getting estimates on contingency. You can see they've included a 20% contingency, which some might think that's a little bit high, but if you think about this being done, call it 3, 4, 5 years out, and the state of the world we live in now wanted to be cautious in what that inflationary pressures could be. So have incorporated 20% contingency in addition to, it is an operational piece, but it does need to be funded somehow. The increased losses that we would have by being shut down the clubhouse for essentially a year. Directing your attention to the bottom left-hand side in the golf course costs, $5.2 million. You can see the pieces of that with the practice area being about 700,000. Each one, greens, fairways coming in right around 1.4 million. Drainage. This is one that when we originally scoped this out, this has changed the most. We probably had about $250,000. And from our close work and partnership with Atlanta Country Club and the project they're going through and learning from some of their shortfalls they had in their learnings was they significantly under budgeted on the drainage side. So we've increased that to $750,000 that we feel will more than adequately be enough for us to remediate some of the issues that we have on the course. We've similarly included a contingency, but for this amount, only 10%. And that's really, because it's more near term and we're more confident in the costs that we would see for that project, just based on the timeline. And then similarly, lost operational profit. Think the clubhouse or the course being closed. We're not going to be able to host events. We're not going to have as many green fees. We're not going to have cart fees. That ultimately trickles down to the bottom line, and we incorporated that as well through a detailed kind of bottoms up build. The last thing I just draw attention to at the bottom part of the slide there is, in addition to what the contractors and that have suggested, we've dropped on top of that an $800,000 additional contingency that, when you add all three of those up, gets you to $4 million of a contingency on that allows us, as things come up when you're breaking out walls and that, as it always does, even on home projects, it gets more expensive. So we wanted to be safe on that instead of having to come back halfway through the project and ask for more dollars. Switching over to the right-hand side and looking at the funding sources. The largest piece of that would be the project capital charge, which we'll go into some more detail on the next slide. Next is initiation fees, in what we would collect in initiation fees over the next 5 years at a clip of $750,000 a year. We feel that's a bit conservative when you look at this year. We're going to collect right around $1 million. So we've bumped that down conservatively to $750,000. I highlighted earlier the excess cash we have on the balance sheet today of about $5.6 million. We're earmarking $3.2 million of that for this project. We felt like it would be certainly irresponsible to utilize all of those funds for the project. Making sure we have an operating kind of rainy day fund as well. So kind of keeping some money in the bank as well. So with all the cash that we have, in addition to the cash that would be coming in over the life cycle of the project, we're going to be earning $1.3 million of interest over the 5 years on that cash as well. So we've included that as a fourth funding source as well. And then fifth and finally, you'll see debt listed up there. It's zero. That's because we'd be taking out a construction loan, $4 million in 2024. That would be fully repaid by the end of the project in 2028 as part of the cap charges that do come in. So don't really have to be a genius to realize, okay, well, that's 1.5 million more that we're bringing in than the project cost. And that's really twofold. One, just to make sure that we're adequately funded for the project should, other additional contingency dollars need to come up. But secondly, puts us on good financial footing for future aspirational capital projects as well. I think it's important to talk about some of the key assumptions that went into this. The devil's in the details, and you can make financials look great anyway, but it's the assumptions that really matter. So I wanted to highlight those. I would say I don't want to bore you, with kind of my dorky financial models. But for those of you that want to see, you're more than welcome to. But we did do a quarterly financial model out 5 years, because really what you had to make sure of is that the inflows align with the timing of the outflows for the project, to make sure that, at the end you could look like you're fully funded, but in the middle, the outflow of costs could be much more than what you've brought in to date. So ultimately wanted to make sure those aligned, that the inflows aligned with when the outflows would happen. First here is, as it relates to the capital charge, $18,000 in total, which would be paid over 60 months, 5 years, $300 a month. For modeling purposes, we had to draw a line in the sand somewhere. So we assumed that 10% would pay up front. That is just for modeling purposes. We haven't finalized that or signed off on that, but ultimately would offer to membership an upfront payment option where there would be a discount, attributed to that. Next is, related to that capital charge, it would be equal across all membership classes and categories. So $300 regardless, tennis, social, golf, whatever you may have. with the exception of seniors that meet certain criteria is outlined in the bylaws, they would get a 50% reduction on that capital charge. This does assume in the model a 10% attrition rate of people that would leave the club as a result of this project. We do have a healthy wait list as well, but ultimately wanted to include some attrition here because looking at other benchmarking sources that we have, they recommend 3 to 5% is what to model in for attrition. Again, we wanted to be conservative and not plan for best case scenarios. So we've modeled in 10% into the model. I touched on initiation fees, $750,000 a year, which equates to roughly 15 new members at our current initiation rate, which is 50,000. Granted, that will change through the life cycle of the project, but for illustration purposes, just kind of shows you what number that would be on an annual basis. $3.2 million excess cash. The interest on, the interest on cash as well that we talked about. Now, I don't have a crystal ball. I don't think anybody does. If you do and can tell me where interest rates will be in 5 years, I want to talk to you about other investment opportunities. But ultimately, what we've kind of sequenced it is kind of starting now, we'd be earning 4.5%, kind of trickling down to 2.25% in 2028. So that's what we've used to build up that ultimately has gotten us $1.3 million of funding coming from interest on the cash that we have. Utilization of the construction loan, hit on that, the lost profit. And then finally, the project funding ultimately resulting in a surplus of $1.5 million that, you know, either allows us for additional contingency or for that future aspirational projects. So that really is how we thought about putting forth the financial picture and concludes that portion. I think it's pretty prudent and thoughtful of how we put this together for our cost and funding to be conservative, yet realistic at the same time.
So if we could please have everybody that wants to ask a question to please come up to either this microphone or the microphone on the other side of the room. We have over 100 Zoom participants that are watching this live, and they can only hear the questions if they're asked through a microphone.
Okay, do the board members want to come up for the question and answer session?
Are we ready? First, thank you all for the work you've done. I think everybody sees the quality of work and the amount of time you put in. Right. I have a golf course question. I've been out here 19 years and there are places we've never been able to drive in 19 years. And I've always heard drainage problems. And I haven't seen any architectural firm, golf architectural firm mentioned, except Cup Designs. They just mentioned briefly once in the Q&A. That's the group that did it originally, a great golf course, but are we going to turn to those? Do we have you say you've been making site visits and talking to Atlanta Country Club. Are there any real professionals involved in this from the golf perspective?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have not only been visiting other courses, but working with, as I had mentioned as well, some of the industry experts in their guidance of who are the top vendors to work with that do these projects. So we've been talking with, there's probably 3 or 4 out there, the Medalists of the world, Cup Design as well, but we've been having conversations, with them and leveraging their input, not only in the kind of the scoping phase that we're at now, but would lean on them as we go to press with the final plans as well to make sure that the golf course is in the, it's draining properly and that we're using the turfs that are best for our course.
Right now, so far, we have not engaged an architectural firm.
We have met with them and talked with them about our project and how they would think about it.
Okay.
What are some of the big potholes that we, should make sure we don't fall into or that we need to consider?
Okay.
But we have not signed on, paid any dollars yet to anybody.
Yeah, we'll go back and forth.
Thanks. So my question has to do more with the clubhouse and the the renovations that are planned there. So as you talk about the roughly $17.5 million that we're going to invest in the clubhouse, there was a lot of discussion in that presentation about efficiency and utility. Did we do a cost benefit study or return on investment analysis on those investments? And what were the results of that study?
Sure, I can take a first stab at it, and Daniel, you may have something you want to add. With respect to first the ballroom, so obviously this upper area here, and I'll just speak to kind of the dollar ROI. I think we could all acknowledge even just in this moment that there's definitely experiential ROI as a result of the fact that I can't see probably 30% of the people in the room. But with respect to just dollar ROI, we lose about 10 to 15 large events per year. In which the exact feedback from that, potential client is that the space is insufficient either for their large wedding or their large corporate event. So we expect a 25 to 35% uptick in revenue just for the ballroom, which would equate to a little over $150,000 or so per year, $250. So an additional $250 or so per year of additional revenue for just the ballroom space. Downstairs, with respect to the efficiency and the ROI, there it's really it's going to be primarily experience driven. As Kelly said, we weren't driving at a goal of, getting a whole lot more people in there. There are 30 extra seats downstairs. Now, one thing we have to keep in mind is downstairs is pretty tight right now. So what we are going to be accomplishing is additional 30 seats, but actually with a sufficient spacing. So like to get back to the corner in the current grill area, you have to toggle around a bunch of people and hope you don't knock over a server coming with some food. In the future environment, that won't happen. Now, certainly if we wanted to cram seats in to the extent that we are right now, we could probably talk a little more to ROI on the dollar sense, but that's more an experiential ROI there, unless Daniel or Kelly wants to correct me there.
So follow-on question then, as somebody and probably much like a lot of folks in this room who owns a business and has to look at return on investment for any kind of capital investments, did we look at different funding mechanisms for that component of the investment based on additional revenues and efficiencies that we thought we would gain versus tapping the membership for that funding?
Well, different funding mechanisms, certainly, debt would be one approach, which was explored. I mean, certainly at the current interest rates, was less attractive. One thing I think that was as Ryan referenced in his presentation, great deal of conservatism in all of these numbers. And the reference was made to the waiting list that we've got on the membership. But there is tremendous ROI from my perspective. If these investments, if we back up and we look at how are we going to create a product that's going to resonate with the community over the next 20, 25 years, frankly, it requires investment. When you look at club benchmarking and some of the other experts in the industry, the clubs that are growing their net worth, their net equity, are those that are investing in themselves. So certainly we can sit on what we've got, and we're going to have, less investment going on, but we're actually over time reducing the net equity in the club. So this is an investment in that. Additionally, as the product profile increases, there'll be more interest in joining. We'll be able to raise the initiation fee. And as Brian referenced, the wheel with respect to how clubs are properly funded, to the extent we can get to the point where we can drive a higher initiation fee and have, frankly, a healthy waiting list, which drives scarcity. And frankly, people want to get what they can't get. That's going to provide us with the opportunity to fund ourselves in a way that over the course of time becomes a lot less dependent upon existing members and capital charges. We're in this position, frankly, because we didn't do a lot of these things years ago.
Yes, I'd like to know if I've got a lot of questions. This presentation is going to be sent out to the members because
Yes.
that would be great. I have a question about number 13. We did the same thing. We tore up the grass. You didn't have it on your timeline, Brian. We rolled out new grass and it's still horrible. So what I'm saying is if you pull up the old grass, you got to put new substrate down. and I'm not an expert in this grass growing stuff, but you got to put 6 to 8 inches of substrate down there for the new grass to really take on. The 2 inches you all mentioned about your presentation about pulling the grass up and you'll have 2 inches of good earth under there. I've never seen grass come up without the dirt. All right, so hopefully you've really evaluated, because there's going to be millions of yards required. That's not part of your $1.3 million. It's probably going to be double that number. That's one technical question, but I really would like a blog or something that we can ask those questions after we review it. And I don't want to waste any more time for everybody else to ask the
I think
question.
it's a fair point. So again, we're not going to get through everybody's questions, concerns tonight. And so we're going to get through as many as we can. But after that, there is Catherine who's fielding all those. So at the end of every FAQ, there's a point for you to submit your questions and concerns. And that's exactly what the board and long range planning wants. We want the feedback so then we can go back and evaluate the project.
Yes, I've been a member even before we moved out here, and I'm not the oldest member, but anyhow, I would like to see the
Happy birthday this week, by the way.
Thank you. Yeah. Who could believe I'm 75? It's about. Thank you. I would like to see the board actually propose more than just this whole plan. I'd like to say, why don't we do $12 million, do the golf course, make the golf course the best we can possibly make it, and then do all of this other stuff. The golf course generates the revenue for the club. The golf course makes it worth 50,000, 70,000.
Again,
And
I hate to cut you off, and I'm serious because there's a lot of people that want to ask a question and not make a statement.
No,
I
I'm
mean,
not making.
I know, but we're really
But
happy
that's
to
what-
take the feedback.
I'm not asking a question. I'm asking if the board would propose that as an alternate is all I'm saying. And I think a lot of us would go for that.
Okay, yes, the board will take that into consideration.
So my question, and it may tie into what he said, my question is, did the board consider breaking this into pieces? So for example, the clubhouse investment and this clubhouse investment and the golf investment as two separate items to be voted on separately. And if you did consider that, what made you decide to go with the full option and that we vote up or down and not have a menu of choice? So what was the discussion around that and what was the decision process?
Okay, so first, we haven't gotten to a point of a vote yet, right? So today is sharing of the information as we've looked
Well,
at
it's
it.
being proposed that way, Mark. You proposed projects. So my question was, if you'll let me reiterate it, because I asked it, I thought clearly. The clear question is, why is this being presented as one big project with a potential up or down vote? That's how it was presented. That's how it came across in all the notes that were sent out. So that's my question, and I would like an answer.
The answer to the question is yes, we did consider that. And as you know, we pushed off the vote because we were getting feedback. And so we wanted to do the town hall, present all the information to the membership, and then get that information, take it back and review the project. Do we go further in debt? Do we pay it off sooner? What do we do differently? So that's what the purpose of today was. There is no vote today. It's going back to get the information and the feedback from the membership. This wasn't the board doing it in isolation, right? Long range planning started it with the board. We had a lot of ad hoc committees that got involved with it. And so again, we're evaluating.
The potential that you could come back to us with a separation of the project as it was presented here to present something different for the vote? Yes or no? It's a yes or no?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
I'm gonna give this away.
But Alan,
I think, everybody who belongs to a club knows that we have to make improvements over time. We expect that. My question is, where are we getting our information or our opinions about what we want the club from? We've got this benchmark group, right, that did surveys that are several years old. And quite frankly, if you look at Benchmark, if you look at Golf Digest, if you look at other articles where their leadership has been quoted, they don't come up with a unique solution for each club. Myers Park, where our new pro came from, it magically did $27 million. Dan Joy is a member of the club in Sarasota that they're a consultant of. Guess what they're proposing? A $20 million project. You go down their customer list, they're doing the same thing over and over. My question is, I'm not interested in what the rest of the world's doing. I'm interested in what the equity members of this club want as the benchmark for their opinion, what their expectations are, and why aren't we looking at that? I mean, quite frankly, tonight, the people in this room should be the people that have a vote, not the people that don't have a vote, right? Isn't that who drives this? Why is that not the consideration?
I can just chime in with a thought on that. So, certainly GGA partners, club benchmarking, a variety of sources have been leveraged, and we could talk about that ad nauseum. I would say, I would encourage everyone to just maybe consider, ultimately the vote, whatever it ends up being, we'll respect it. A lot of work has gone into this, and so I appreciate all the effort that's been done. But with respect to kind of where we are as a club, again, I just remind everyone of the vision of the club, which again, we didn't come up with it. This board didn't come up with it. But right there at the beginning, the three-legged stool, outstanding facilities, exceptional service, genuine hospitality. If you all feel this facility, the clubhouse, this ballroom is truly an outstanding facility, then by all means, we don't need to change a thing. But my opinion is that it's substandard. So it could be that the standards of membership are not all aligned. But I would just suggest that if the vision that we've got is the vision we keep, that needs to drive the direction of the board and ultimately, hopefully, attract members who kind of buy into that vision. So
I've got two quick comments and then I'll get to my questions. But first off, thank you for everyone on the board, everyone that serves on committees, long-range planning. I know that you're not paid for this. It's a lot of personal time, energy, effort that goes into it. And I've seen it firsthand. So I appreciate that. Secondly, the pro shop, I saw it up there for the first time, didn't realize how much money it's making, but Troy has done a phenomenal job on that. When I go in now to sign in for a tea time, I try to have tunnel vision because if I start looking left or right, I'm going to want to buy a bunch of stuff. So hats off to Troy. Great job there. Two things. We've been members for over 10 years. And when we joined, the food here in this area, in my opinion, was the best place you could eat. And I feel like over the past decade, Marietta Square has popped up 4 or 5 restaurants that are probably superior to what we have. I served on house probably 5 years ago. There were discussions back then that the kitchen's too small. That's hampering issues with storage, prep, service. That's why we have to do these buffets. Are we confident that by expanding the kitchen, that the food quality and service and time and all that, is it really going to be what we say it's going to be? How do we know that?
Yeah, I'll take that. That's a great question, Mr. Lugos. I appreciate that. Yeah, I mean, we spent a lot of time with the board, with House Committee, with all the subcommittees, and the architect to really make sure that when we went to redesign the 3 kitchens, that we are going to be efficient enough to be able to perform to all the competition around here. And we absolutely feel 100% confident that we will do that with this design.
And
We know we have some challenges, and we'll.
Daniel, we're also consulting with a kitchen consultant, James Camacho, that does thousands of clubs around the world. His expertise actually plays into what we need to expand in order to provide the type of meals, type of service that he knows that other clubs also want and have to be competitive with the restaurants in the neighborhood. That's one of the key things that drives a lot of the, elevation of menus, kitchens is the fact that there's so many good restaurants out there. Well, we want you all to come here. So that's one of the reasons why these kitchens are so important.
And then just the second part of the question is the golf course. I feel like it's phenomenal from maybe May till September, October. But then every year we hear in the winter, it's historic rainfall and it turns into more of a mud pit. And do we feel confident that there's good turf underneath, that if we spend the money on the fairways and greens, that it can become something special?
Yeah, and I think your first part of your question is kind of spot on, and the answer is getting kind of old. Well, it's historic rainfall is the cause of it, right? Like that's the end of the day. We realize, there's other issues. Hence, we're proposing what we are, which is better drainage. Where there are areas where better subsurface needs to be added, we've budgeted that as well as bringing in the best types of turf that are for our area. So yes, we are confident that the playability of the golf course, the season where it would be in top condition would be much longer than it is currently.
Okay.
Hey, I wanted to thank everybody that's worked on this because I know a lot of people don't really realize how many people worked on this and for how many hours. I don't really have a specific question, but I just wanted to ask everybody to consider something. Ask yourself the question if you're in the audience, what does the club look like if we don't do this? Like, what's it going to be like in 2 years in that dining room downstairs? The dining room downstairs is abysmal. I'm sorry. The chairs are beat up. They've been reupholstered. I don't know how many times. We have about 12 different kinds of chairs. It's crowded. The buffet's falling apart. I don't know. I've been in the kitchen. Raise your hand if you've been in the kitchen. Okay. Y'all, that kitchen is tiny. And if you go in it, it's just stunning to think that we're getting the quality of food that we're even getting out of that kitchen. I don't even know how the chef does it. I just would like to encourage people. My husband and our equity members, we're definitely voting yes for this. I'm super excited about all the plans. I think the architectural renderings are phenomenal. It was great use of existing space. It was smart use of existing space. My background is in architecture and interior design. So I studied them. I looked at them. It's smart. What does this place look like if we don't do this in 2 years? The living room turned out beautifully. Thank you so much. It's fabulous. It's all very current. And I think there's an important thing that all of us that are older like myself, I think it's really important that we pay it forward for younger families, the next generation, future children that are coming here. It can't always just be about what we want today for ourselves. I think my husband, I think we have to pay it forward. Thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you guys as well. That was a great presentation. Thank you for taking the time to do all that. My question is, during the 6 months to, I would say probably 7, 8 to let the grass settle in after the golf course is complete, are we going to have a residency at a different golf club somewhere around Georgia that we'll be able to play at during the time that this course is shut down?
Yeah, good question. So I would say, from talking with Troy and others, we've been really good stewards to other clubs that have been going through currently or in the past projects like this. So we would expect some return on that as well. Do we have anything lined up concrete as we sit here today? No, but that would be one of the key initiatives that, Troy and the broader team would be working on, is leveraging their relationships to allow us to play at other facilities as well, in addition to what would be open on the course itself.
Okay, I'm not a public speaker, so you'll have to forgive me, but I just would like to thank the board for all their work and all that you guys have done to get us to this point. I would also like to thank Mr. Powers and Mr. Harris for all the work that you guys have done. It has not gone unnoticed. I just, talking about standards of the club and what a great job Troy has done in the clubhouse, I would love to be able to see us invest in the tennis facility. I feel like the tennis facility is the one facility in the clubhouse that on a weekly basis, we host other communities in our area. And it's not on par with what our standards should be at the club. So I know that we need to do things to invest in the club. So I would just ask the board to maybe reconsider that. And if there's something that we could do to make that a nicer environment from the bathrooms. I mean, my husband tells me there's still places to put a cigarette out in the bathroom. I don't know. I haven't been in the men's bathroom, but so just throwing that out there. I have concerns about some of the issues that I would like to talk about from a design perspective, and I'm hoping that Mr. Harris can help touch on this. One, in the MVL, you know, we do have members who like to drink, which it's okay. But with us moving that kitchen area there from a safety perspective, you know, could you kind of touch on that, on what we could do to help, you know, protect members from maybe walking through that area if with events and stuff like that. My other question is, if you're switching out that room is used a lot for showers and events because we don't have a lot of spaces with that. With the new MVL room, could you touch on, and you don't have to answer these today, you can send an email. Could you touch on how many people can be in that room, as well as the additional room that you're equipping for the community with these plans? And the other question from a design perspective, as I noticed, the bar now is going to be moved to the center of the room. And we are so thankful for the younger families, and I'm all about buying into the younger generation and all of that. With us moving the bar and the buffet in the same area and the beautiful young children that we have flowing through here, is there an opportunity to maybe move that? Because I do think for some of us who are now empty nesters, we do like the perspective of having a quiet place to go and have a drink. You know, so those are just some from design that I would like for you guys to hopefully address at some point.
Thank you. Thank you. Daniel says we'll address those in emails, but
Yes, I agree.
they are all things we have considered.
Okay, and thank you guys for everything.
Thank
Hello, everybody. I hope you can hear me. My name is Jeff Francis, better known to everybody around here as Geoff, for reasons I still don't understand. First, I want to thank you for all the communication. I thought was very, very good, much more so than we had in previous projects. But the one thing that jumped out to me was, will the net worth of the club increase after the project? And the answer was yes. We sent the project cash flow and project cost to Club Benchmarking, which I guess is a renowned consulting company in this business. And they said they estimate the net worth of the club will increase from 12.5 million all the way up at the end of this year, all the way up to 19.5 million at the end of 2028, an increase of 7 million. And we're spending 23 million. I'd just like somebody to explain why we're only going up 17 million after spending 23.
Yeah, thank you. And, you know, I would say that the answer to that question kind of incorrectly went out and was improperly framed in the Q&A that went out to the point of where there is the addition of all of these projects, those investments, but concurrently you have material depreciation that's going on in the existing assets of the club as well. So you really have to think about it of what would the club net value be in 5 years if we do nothing versus if we do this. So there's a material gap there where depreciation of the existing assets would take us significantly lower.
Okay. First of all, thank you for everyone who's been involved in this project. If you're a current board member and you're in the room, if you'll stand up, because you deserve some appreciation for having served on the board. For anyone who doesn't know me, I'm Will Allen. I came to Marietta Country Club in 1985 as the assistant golf pro at the old golf club. I've been a member here since the early 2000s. I've been on the board, served as the golf chairman and the grounds chairman. So just to give you a little background. So I have two questions. The first one is this. I went back and I did a little research, and we did I think it was GGA Partners. We did everyone, I think it was 900 and some people that participated in the survey. And in the survey, one of the questions was asked was the tolerance for a capital charge. And in that survey, what came out was 94% of the people said I could tolerate a $400 a year capital charge or a one-time $2,500 capital charge. So I want to know, since the board obviously used that as some of the information on how to prioritize pieces, did we also use the information on the tolerance for a capital charge to come up with $3,600? Because when you look at it, there was a certain percentage were 0, a certain percentage was 5%, a certain percentage were 10%, and then there was 6% that kind of said, I'll do whatever. So we're looking at a capital charge that's 10 times larger than what the membership said they would potentially accept. So that's the first question. And then I want to move to the second question, and you can answer these back to back. The other thing I've heard a lot about is the ROI on what's going on at the club. So Troy, congratulations on doing a great job in the golf shop. Obviously that has added a lot of value to us as members, and that income coming in is helping keep our dues somewhat in check, because that goes to our bottom line. So when we look at this overall project, one of the things that was brought up very early on was moving the golf shop over to where the dirt parking lot is right now, putting the golf carts underneath there, expanding the golf shop, putting fitness and youth center on top. So that would seem to be a much higher ROI by having a larger golf shop that produces more revenue. Also, if you have your carts underneath there, you can control what's happening with actually people signing in and being charged for carts, as opposed to being on the other side of the property. The other piece of that a lot of people probably don't realize is those batteries in the carts are going to get worn out much quicker, having to drive back and forth and back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. So it would seem like maybe that, from an ROI perspective, might be a better project to have earlier as opposed to later. And I'll just let you guys address those two things.
Will, always great questions. On the cap chart. So when we did the survey, GGA did do the survey. They put it out there and they said, what would you be willing to pay? Is it a good data point? Yes. Is it information? Yes. But it's kind of saying, what would I really want to pay for my taxes? What would I really want to pay for other things? So it is a point out there. Was it considered? Yes. When you looked at the priority of the projects, the golf course and the clubhouse versus the new fitness center and the pro shop, you know, it was really going back to the member survey, looking at it was really around dining, golf course, and social events. So the dining is what we would be looking at downstairs. The golf course is in the plans for being worked on. And again, there was a very good subcommittee, ad hoc committee that worked on it. Will was part of that. You know, we have to trust that they were taking into consideration the soil conditions and working with Mark on that. And then the third major area was the social events, which is really what comes back to these ballrooms, is allowing us to expand the ballrooms. So when we had dueling pianos or the piano man in here, we had a cap of 150 people, right? If we expand the ballroom, we figure we could get at least 250 or more people in here that it's usable space. So you could put that into your ROI, that you're going to be able to do it, but it's also about getting member satisfaction. And again, I just want to reiterate, you know, today is a day for us to present to you. We're wanting the feedback. I guarantee you the board and long-range planning is going to take all that back into consideration.
What?
I asked, sorry, he asked two questions. He asked one about the ROI, and then the second one was around the fitness center and the cart barn.
Yeah. Hey, thanks, board. Obviously, you've done a lot of work, Mark, Stacy, Brian. So I love the ideas. My question is really about, it seems like we have specific numbers
that we're gonna get charged, where do the numbers come from for all the expenses? Are there quotes? Has there been bidding? What's been the process to get the numbers relative to what apparently we know we're gonna pay?
Dan, do you want to talk about how we got to the quotes?
Anybody can answer that one.
I mean, we did, I mean, from the construction side of it, we, I guess, I'm not exactly sure
Yeah.
the name of the company that we used.
So the construction company that worked on the pool pavilion, Hodgson Hicks, who we have worked with many, many times on many clubs. They're the ones that were brought in to review the preliminary plans. Now, these are preliminary plans, so they're putting square footage numbers to it. But the good thing about the numbers that they put to these very preliminary drawings and plans is they understand the quality that we expect in the design, and they understand the quality that the club really deserves to get to. So the numbers aren't based on any bid situation. They're just based on estimators who have done this type of project hundreds of times. So that's where these numbers within the clubhouse. Now, I can't speak for the golf course, but that's where the clubhouse.
So
numbers go.
is it premature a little bit to talk about how much we're gonna pay if we don't know how much we're gonna pay for what we're paying for? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think the approach was with the information we had, get as accurate of costs as possible, to scope out, to come out with what it could look like. And have tacked on top of it, significant contingencies based on what those experts have told us, they've run into in the past, as well as our top level contingency as well. So understand comments certainly, on the golf course side, have we gotten any official bids? No, but we've worked with 3 vendors, construction companies that do this, 100 times a year. And based on the scope of the project and knowing our course and coming out and visiting it, what the rough costs would be, plus or minus.
Yeah, okay, that's cool. I think the golf course is probably easier to estimate than the $11 million ballroom
Agreed.
renovation. Have we got any kind of estimates on people that do 100 ballroom renovations?
Yeah, again, it's going back to some folks that we've worked with before. It's a swag number. Why do we have a 20% contingency on top of a contingency? Because we don't know what it's going to be. How are we going to go out and get 3 bids on a project that's not going to get approved by the membership? Mr. Dallas.
Oh, I know you're happy to see me. So I'm going to address the elephant in the room for all of us folks in our 70s. I'm 72. This project is going to last, that's just going to pay for last 25 years. I'll be 75 or older by the time this project is completed. 95. I'll get about 5 years, give or take, worth of use out of this project, about 20%. And I'm being asked to pay 100% of the cost. While us seniors are certainly willing to pay our fair share, 100% seems excessive for someone who's going to get 5 years of usage. Did the board give any consideration to break down the assessment based on age or years of service inside the club? Because even Cobb County recognizes that a 65-year-old shouldn't pay school tax.
Actually,
you're welcome, Mark.
Actually, it's 62, by the way, because I take advantage of that as well. I'm going to digress for 1 second, because it's a great point that Bill made. God, 11 years ago, I took my daughter, Mary, and I to California for her 21st birthday. We went out to Napa and stayed in San Francisco. And so in San Francisco, there's the Adams Mark Hotel. On top of that hotel is a bar called the Top of the Mark. I don't know if anybody's been there. It's fantastic. Absolutely beautiful views of the Golden Gate Bridge, sunsets, things like that. Well, our fathers, our grandfathers were all being deployed out to Asia to fight in World War II. And they had a tradition at that bar that you would go in there and you would drink off your battalion's bottle. And so you drank for free unless you got the last drink, and then you had to buy the new bottle. Unfortunately, our bottle's getting empty. We've all been able to take advantage of this course and this clubhouse for many years. We've been getting our drinks from it, and now we're going to have to look at, it's our time to buy a bottle.
All right, real quick, I want to, first of all, thank everyone on the board. You guys have done a great job. It hasn't been easy. But thank you for keeping everyone in consideration for what you're doing. One question I did have, when we're thinking about the ballrooms, have they looked at raising the ceilings and making it, you know, something that would be a more event facility to, you know, have higher dollar weddings and things like that? I mean, has that been taken into consideration? So not drop ceilings like drywall and 30 foot and, you know.
Oh, I'm sorry. So the ceilings wouldn't necessarily be raised because there is existing infrastructure up there, unless you took the entire ballroom off, which we're not proposing.
I thought.
But
so
we are
so it's not
increasing
all
the
getting
volume.
taken off.
We're increasing the volume. So the rooms themselves become a larger, grander space. So it would change the dynamic of the room. It would create a more elegant space.
Okay. Also, with the fitness and the childcare, that's one thing that's big for me and my family. So is that something that can be swapped out? Is that something that the board has looked at for maybe creating a straw man that could be swapped out for something else when it comes to having the fitness facilities and that? To me, it seems like it's one of those things that, you know, people really kind of clump, you know, it's a new building. It's a
Right.
new experience. It's something that's.
Again, I can only reiterate this, we're presenting information here. We want to take the feedback that we're getting from it. Again, if we went back to the member survey, you know, it was really leaning towards the dining, golf and social experiences. I mean, fitness was right below that one. So when we started to look at it, that's how we prioritized it.
And that was one thing also. So, and this is just coming from me personally. When it comes to dining experience, sometimes it doesn't mean spending $17 million on a new dining experience. Sometimes it's, you know, can we bring in better talent? Can we expand the kitchen? Can we bring in better equipment? Can we bring in better things in order to elevate the dining experience? You know, and that's, so that's just my feedback and.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the short answer on that, and I'll refer to Steve, is that, but as
Yeah.
I understand it, you really can't improve the kitchen without
Right.
doing
When you
what
talk
we're
about
proposing.
expanding the kitchen, that's a snowball effect. You expand the kitchen. That includes moving the dining, reorganizing the dining, pushing out into existing covered dining spots in order to keep the same.
So
you know, square
dining
foot-
technology hasn't improved in the past 20 years?
Dining technology?
No, cooking technology. So you don't have better salamanders, you don't have better, you know, kitchen.
Oh,
equipment in
certainly, the
past
the
20 years.
equipment is better,
I
but
mean, I've been in the French Laundry. They have a very small kitchen. But they
Yes.
put out a great product. So my question is it, do we need more square footage? Or do
I
we
think
need a more
the-
quality product?
I think the answer is yes. I can't go into specifically why, but again, we do work with.
Well, but I mean,
professionals.
isn't that what we're paying the professionals for, is to come up with specifically, this is exactly what we need?
Well, we can't get into specifics on how the kitchen is designed right now because this is preliminary. And we have
But
consulted.
if we're bringing in the best and the brightest, shouldn't they be able to say, hey, you know, in this square footage, we should be able to recalibrate or do something. And this should be the contingency plan? I'm not even saying it's the way to go. I'm just saying, but maybe it's a contingency.
Well, all I can say is we did bring in the best. And we have to talk to them and they have agreed to what we're proposing as expanding the kitchen and the
Oh, sure.
efficiency of making it a better experience. So other than
But
designing.
did
the
you
kitchen,
ask them if you had to do it a different way, what would you do?
Oh, yeah, they looked at several.
They looked at multiple options.
Okay.
I mean, I can't tell you the number of kitchen options we looked at, but yes, it,
All right.
it has
Thank
been
you.
discussed.
Okay, thank you. I just have two quick questions and one of them you may have answered and I missed. So first of all, thank you for all the preliminary emails last week and it provided great information coming in. So I really appreciate that part. One of the things in the FAQs that came last night, I guess, was one of the questions was, is there also an anticipated monthly dues increase? And the answer was yes, but it didn't really elaborate to that. And so I guess in looking at the whole picture, I think everybody loves the plan. And every time you talk, I love the plan. How are we going to pay for it? And just like at our own houses, you know, we look at there are things that we want to do and how much money are we willing to commit and can we right now or what have you. So I think my first question is on the bottom line. I think we have to look at all the pieces. We've got $100 we're already down to 300. And if we're looking at increased dues, do we have an idea of what those might be? And then the second thing that great timeline on the closures of the golf, but I'm not sure what the closures are on dining if we move forward with all the dining things.
Yeah, I would just say as it relates to dues increase proposed for the next year, we're in the final stages of budget planning for that. That I think over the next month will come out at the equity meeting will be scheduled in October. But somewhere in the neighborhood of, low single digits. Second part of the question.
Yeah, with respect to the disruption in the event of the clubhouse expansion, there is a very detailed plan to ensure that there will be availability. There's a very well thought out and detailed plan to ensure that members will have consistent access to dining. Those go from tents to utilizing the pavilion in creative ways. That's important for a few different reasons. One, I said in my earlier comments how amazing our staff is. We got to take care of our staff. So we've made this plan with an awareness of the fact that we're going to have to keep, volume where it needs to be to take care of our staff. So that's going to be really an item that won't be compromised on. In addition to that, that'll also kind of concurrently provide continued access for all the membership. So good question, Susan. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, I know I'm back. Sorry. I really have two questions. And one is just clarity on when this is, if it's brought forward again for a vote. Who is eligible to vote? Is it the entire membership or just equity members? Okay, so just equity members. And then the second one is, have you considered or would you consider perhaps doing another survey tied to this, to what's been presented and maybe some of the other projects that were mentioned in the beginning that are in later phases? Now that you have more specifics about what can be done and more visual information about what it would look like. And, after a very informative evening, and I applaud all of you for that. I think doing another survey might bring out a revised set of priorities, perhaps, and would be, I think, the fairest way to tie together what's going to be done with who really pays for it. So just a thought, if you want to know if you consider doing that.
Yeah, I think we can absolutely consider that.
Okay, thank you.
On one of the FAQs that was sent out, it was talking about senior status members would only pay half of the proposed capital charge. And then it also stated that senior status members would be excluded from assessments. My question is, what is the difference between a capital charge and an assessment? And what would be an example of an assessment?
Somebody just answered the question. It's semantics. They are the same thing. The way the bylaws are written, it says that a senior member will not be assessed, but they may get a cap charge applied to them.
Isn't that just a play on words almost? I mean,
Well, there has been a lot of time spent recently going through the bylaws. When we get to the annual meeting, in case we don't have anything to talk about, we will be going through the bylaw revisions. And, I think that would be one of the things that needed to be cleaned up. They've been out there for a long time.
I'm a social sports member, don't have a vote in this matter either way. But my concern or thoughts are questions. I'm being assessed the same amount as the golf members, and I can't benefit from any of the golf benefits. And additionally, you're proposing the things that could benefit me to move way back in the list of things to do. You're not fixing the pool. You're not fixing the fitness center. You're not fixing the parking, which, by the way, I'm somewhere out 40 tonight. I don't understand how that is exactly fair. I understand I don't have a vote in the matter and you can overrule me, but my dues are going to increase by 179% every month. I could build a pool and live in my pool and go to a nice restaurant cheaper than I could come here, because I understand. I just heard the word do it. So I guess we're a golf club and not a country club. I'm just concerning that.
The board, we did look at this, right? And we knew it was going to be a controversial or a discussion point. So we put in the Rose Pavilion. It was about $3 million. We upgraded the tennis facilities, a new bathroom out there. All that was paid out of cash, right? So now when we're coming back with the $23 million, really it's going to be maybe $28 million that we've reinvested into the club, assuming this gets put through. 7 million or 8 million of that is going back to the golf. We're all in it together. So I think it's been equitable when you consider that sport and social members have gotten the benefits of everything else that we've been doing.
Paid every assessment from 1999 till now, and I've never used the golf course, not one time.
But again, the golf course is a small percentage of what we're looking at, so.
I'm sorry, your golf dues are $200 a month more than mine. $200 a month.
I appreciate
And my
the-
initiation fee is dependent on when I joined. I would have paid a lot more if I hadn't joined when I joined. That's not an issue here. That's not fair.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, first of all, because I know that you all actually do have real jobs that you go to during the day, and this is not it. And sorry, I'm too tall. First of all, I was just gonna say thank you, because I know that you all have your own real jobs that you go to during the day and you volunteer to do this, and I do not. So thank you for that. I feel like my question has kind of already been at least parsed together by several other questions. So the main thing that I'm hearing is there is no calculable dollar amount return on investment. The return is the elevated experience. So in listening to the presentation, it's focused on dining, the clubhouse, and golf. I don't play golf. All of my boys in my family do. So I don't know anything about the golf course or grass. So I'm not going to comment on that at all because I'm not qualified and I know that. As far as like the dining, if the return on the investment is your elevated experience, in my opinion, the dining experience starts with actual dining. So I'll say, I think the plans are beautiful, but if the plate coming out doesn't match the surrounding environment, I don't really care that it's gorgeous. I care that like this, I could go to Max or Hampton Harry's without paying $800 a month for the privilege of stepping through the door. One of the other comments, which I very much agreed with, was, what will the club look like if we don't do this? There was one slide at the very, very beginning that listed a 8 or 10 long-term goals or long-term 25-year plan items. every single one of which sounds awesome and I would love and I would use every single one of them. So it seems like asking us to prepay for the hope that a bigger kitchen changes the dining experience, meaning what comes out on the plate, when I don't think it currently rises to the level of what we already pay for. I think that's a bit of a big ask. So it seems like maybe that money would be better spent actually changing the experience. I think of a youth area, like redoing a fitness center, that would change your experience every single time you drove on, or every single time you came here. That would change what you're able to do, what your kids can do, and leave you alone so you can go to the beautiful Mountain View Lounge for a little while. That would really truly change your experience and elevate it a little bit more than some of those other items. So I guess my question is it a possibility to sort of shuffle around or reevaluate the priority list before you put it to a vote?
So I'll start with the beginning part of the question, which was related to kind of ROI experience and all the rest. And I would agree. The club, as the vision, you can call me a broken record, but I think it's important to kind of go back to guiding principles when you're making key strategic decisions. And the club exists, the vision exists to provide elevated member experiences. So granted, there are a variety of different experiences that we provide, and I think the club does a great job of that. I mentioned also, the staff is incredible. So the fact that we're able, frankly, I think maybe Monique referenced it, the fact that we're able to get the food quality that we currently get out of the kitchens that we've got is exceptional. They deserve absolute accolades for that. Again, MVL kitchen, 80 square feet, downstairs, insufficient space for the volume that we're putting out. I would agree. I think there's opportunity for us to improve with respect to presentation, menu variety, and the like, but that is only going to be a possibility if we provide staff with adequate space to do what they do best. They've been doing, like I said, more with less for decades. And frankly, I think we owe it to them to, at some point, give them the resources they need to provide the experience that they want to provide. And I think we've been asking them, frankly, to fight with a hand tied behind their back. Now, with respect to shuffling priorities and the like, that's not a question for me to address.
All the feedback and we're going to reassess.
I mean, I'll just say the dining room, we already have one, and it's not, I mean, it's a country club. It ain't exactly a dump. I mean, we still do have a dining room. Adding something, a feature that we don't currently have, I think would go a long way. That's all I'm saying. Thank you. I appreciate your time and I appreciate y'all's openness in answering all of our questions.
Hi, people who know me know that I'm very detail oriented. And if we can put the slide up there with the ballroom again, because the geometry isn't working.
That one.
Okay, so you've got that one and it's showing the open veranda centered. It's not. You've got one window in the yellow horizontal. And then you've got two more getting to the center. But if you look at the slide before that, you've got two horizontal windows before you get to the veranda. So are we driving costs by moving that veranda to the left? Or
You still have to remember the design of the upper level ballroom is very much tied into the lower level kitchen expansion and organization of the dining rooms.
okay, be careful because you're digging a grave, because that clearly shows the veranda is not centered.
It
And
is
if you
not
go to the
centered.
next slide, it is.
Correct.
So you're entirely shifting the entire roofing to center that veranda.
The entire blue area there,
Yeah,
that's new construction.
not all of it is. And
It's all
you
new.
show
See,
it in
the
you
red-
show it
the-
in the fly through is centered on the brick walkway out there.
The red area is being demoed. That goes away.
It's
Blue-
centered on the brick walkway, which is that also moving?
Yes.
So
All the
it's
brick-
it's a
got the-
complete rebuild from everything all the way out. So then the question comes in, how much money can we save by not going with the aesthetics of centering everything?
you will end up with a dining room that's basically like you've got now with about 12 columns. Imagine this room with 12 columns in it. That's what happens when you don't get rid of some of the old and create a new
I
space.
get that, but if you count your columns, you're not mathematically, you're not consistent. You're literally shifting that veranda, which means that you're going to shift everything out here and shift the roof lines and shift the brick walkway and shift everything. The brick arch that's out there, that's
Yes.
also getting demoed and
Oh,
moved.
yes.
Wow. Again,
And-
my question is, how much can we save by not going with the centering aesthetics?
You can save money, but you will not have a good restaurant space. I'm just telling you, it will not work. This space up here, you can't change at all. So you'd be left with this ballroom. Oh, sure.
My name is Jim Cole. I'm one of the original board members that brought the club out here. There's a couple of you in the room that still survives. This is what we dreamed about. And this kind of discussion is how these guys are going to be able to deal with this, because I think they heard you today in many ways, which we heard in 1988 about the ideas of moving a club to here and building this club. And this is really our vision at that time. Now, it took a lot of steps and a lot of boards to get there. And I want to warn these guys, the president that year, we know who they are, a few of us, he went bankrupt doing this. Because this is how much is required to do just the original building and the course. And I drew short straws. I was the first Greens chairman. And that's not what you want to do in a new course. So, because the drainage issue was one of our big issues then, and the other boards have dealt with it and dealt with it and dealt with it. And they're dealing with it now, and they will continue to deal with it. So I'm sure they're going to take, if they're anything like we were, we listened to a lot of people and had a lot of ideas and all this kind of stuff. And they're going to hear you. I mean, they're going to hear you. We're going to be together. Everybody's not going to be happy. All right. I'm giving you the talk because the vote was 231 to 225 to come here. So we were so convincing that you're here by 6 votes, right? Yeah, 6 votes. And we had sent out information. We had pro and con. We had lawyers and lawyers. All right. And that's just the way it is. But what I think I want to finally say is this is an awesome place. I mean, this is pretty awesome when you look at where we came from. And a lot of people have put effort into it. They're doing it now and they're learning. They're spending hours like others have, and we'll be better off for it. Some of us won't be lasting long enough to enjoy it. I'm older than the previous one a good bit, but we understand and we love it in the community. The intimacy and friendliness that you sense here is from this original group and those who have come after, and y'all have added to it. There's been a pattern laid in here with some small town flavor. And I hope to God it never goes away, you know, because it's really neat. But anyway, thank you guys. And I'll pray for you.
I appreciate your comments because I agree with you. I think people love this place. And if you didn't, we'd be out of here and we wouldn't be here tonight and we wouldn't come here all the time. But I'm going to take great questions tonight. But I'm going to take this back to ground zero. One thing that I would ask is if we can't show that we're repairing the facilities and maintaining the facilities today, I get very concerned about spending millions of dollars on new facilities that we won't maintain. And that's just basic things that we should be doing every day. When you've got paint that's peeling, it should be painted. It shouldn't take months and months. When you've got electrical wires exposed, they should be covered up and sealed properly. When you've got canopies over at the tennis court with the understructure rotting out that could potentially fall on someone, that's an issue. We've got window sills that are rotted out. You've got one window sill over there being held in place by packing tape. So I don't know if that's to keep the rain out, to keep the window in, or whatever it may be. Those things are just basics that we expect when we walk into the club. We should see those things. So I'm not talking about outstanding facilities. I'm talking about adequate facilities. It's not only embarrassing for us as members, it's embarrassing for other people that come to our club. It's embarrassing for guests that come here as well when they see these things. So I would ask you to make sure that we're showing our members that we can maintain and repair the facilities we have today before we spend money to build new facilities that we won't maintain. And Daniel, I'll give you these pictures so you can see everything. Thank you.
Oh, great. Last one. I'll make this a great question then. Thank you guys very much. My question is this: at the beginning of the program, you started with some aspirational projects that are not part of this current proposal. So the first thing that I started thinking of is, okay, we're going to do this for 5 years. We're going to have the $300 a month. We're going to get through with it. What is this long range planning committee's thoughts on funding what is obviously coming right behind this project? Thanks.
Again, I think, thanks. It is a good question. I mean, it's everything is under review and it's not a pass off answer. I mean, we really are looking at the finances and then it'll just depend on what the next project is. Thank you, everybody.